What happens when, political power plays crash headfirst into the seemingly, boring world of legal fine print? And how can a really niche legal battle actually shake up our entire democratic process? Today, we're taking a deep dive into exactly that. We're exploring a core question. How might a political party use legal mechanisms, tools, to consolidate power and effectively suppress opposition? Our focus today is a brand new, pretty comprehensive legal and political research analysis. It was published just today, July 19th, 2025. It's titled Florida's Republican Divide, Trademarks, Suppression, and Democracy. In this report, it meticulously examines an ongoing legal battle between the Republican Party of Florida, the RPOF, and the Florida Republican Assembly, the FRA, specifically over trademarks. But it's really far more than just a trademark dispute. It connects that legal skirmish to broader allegations of voter suppression and, manipulation tactics within the state.
Yeah, and our mission today is really to unpack the constitutional implications, the key legal precedents, and the broader democratic consequences of these interconnected issues. It's almost jarring, isn't it? We usually think of trademark law as protecting, say, Nike's swoosh or Apple's logo, but here the report shows it's being deployed not to sell products, but maybe to silence political voices. That's a real insight, a corporate legal tool kind of morphed into a political weapon. This raises an important question. What does this report really reveal about power dynamics within a major political party and its sort of cascading effect on individual voters across the state?
Right. And why is this deep dive important for you, our listener, regardless of your political leanings? It's about recognizing the fundamental mechanisms, the gears that can affect political pluralism and how easily you can participate in the democratic process. It offers those aha moments about the surprising, sometimes subtle ways that seemingly neutral legal tools can be deployed in the political arena to shape who gets to speak, who gets to organize, and maybe even who gets to vote. Okay, so let's zoom in on the specific flashpoint that really launched this report. This legal tug of war between the Republican Party of Florida and an organization called the Florida Republican Assembly, or FRA. The report describes the FRA as an independent conservative group, an affiliate of the National Federation of Republican Assemblies. They've been operating for decades, promoting traditional Republican values and grassroots stuff. And historically, they've used Republican imagery, including that iconic elephant symbol, and identified with Republican branding. That's consistent with the NFRA's national trademark registration.
Yeah, and what the report finds quite striking is that despite this long history, in August 2024, the RPOF really escalated tensions significantly. They threatened legal action against the FRA for its continued use of the word Republican and the elephant symbol. If you zoom out for a moment, this move by the RPOF seems like a notable departure from how they treated them before, from their previous tolerance. It suggests, as the report argues, a broader strategy to consolidate control over Republican messaging and organizational activities in Florida.
Okay, but the FRA, they weren't about to just roll over, were they? They fired back with a detailed, pretty strongly worded legal response. What was their core legal position, according to the report?
Well, the FRA's arguments, the report says, are twofold and quite robust. First, they claim nominative fair use. This is a legal doctrine, basically says you can use someone else's trademark if it's necessary to describe their product or organization or your relationship to it, without implying endorsement. The FRA argued their use of Republican is simply to accurately describe their political orientation and their connection to the broader movement. Makes sense? Second, they raised really significant First Amendment concerns.
Oh, the First Amendment.
Right, exactly. Arguing that political speech gets the highest constitutional protection in the U.S., and you can't use trademark law to suppress legitimate political expression. They explicitly point to the Supreme Court's decision in Mattel v. Tam. That was a landmark case where the court essentially said, you can't use trademark law to silence speech just because you don't like its political message. It's a huge First Amendment shield for groups like the FRA.
Okay, so this isn't just some, petty squabble over an elephant symbol, is it? What does the report suggest are the RPOF's deeper political motivations here?
Precisely. It's not just about the logo. Beyond the legal technicalities, the report suggests this challenge is driven by broader strategic and political considerations. See, the FRA has been an independent voice within the Republican movement, sometimes taking positions that differ from or even directly challenge the official party line.
Okay.
So this dispute, the report indicates, looks like an attempt by the RPOF to silence or marginalize an independent voice that's become inconvenient, maybe, or perhaps threatening to party unity and control. Think of it like a gardener, not just pruning the bush, but trying to rip out any plant that isn't exactly the same as the main crop.
Hmm.
It seems to be about total uniformity, aiming to limit political pluralism within the Republican movement itself.
Political pluralism within a single party. That's a fascinating concept. So the report argues they're trying to homogenize their own ranks.
That seems to be the argument, yes.
And how does that connect to what's happening outside the party, with voters generally? The report emphasizes that this trademark dispute, it can't be understood in isolation. It's actually part of a larger pattern. Let's shift our focus then to the voter suppression allegations leveled against Florida Republicans.
Right. The report definitely ties this into a larger pattern. It points out that Florida has become, well, a leader in passing restrictive voting legislation since 2013. That's following the Shelby County v. Holder Supreme Court decision. And what's particularly striking is that this acceleration of restrictive legislation happened even after Florida's 2020 election was widely praised as smooth and secure. Governor Ron DeSantis himself famously stated, and I quote, "The way Florida did it, I think, inspired confidence."
Right, I remember that quote.
Yet, despite that, the report highlights a clear push for more restrictions afterward.
And part of that push included creating a very specific office, didn't it?
Yes, exactly. One of the most significant initiatives was the creation of the Office of Election Crimes and Security in 2022. This office, it's housed within the Florida Department of State, staffed with 15 investigators and 10 police officers. Cost taxpayers about $3.7 million.
Wow.
And critics argue it's primarily a tool for voter intimidation, not just legitimate election security, especially given its vague mandate and broad discretion. What's compelling here, and the report cites multiple investigations, is that voter fraud is consistently shown to be incredibly rare, like searching for a winning lottery ticket that was never even bought, basically.
So statistically insignificant.
Extremely. For example, a New York Times investigation found no substantial voter fraud in 2020. An Associated Press analysis found fewer than 475 possible claims out of 25.5 million votes in 6 battleground states.
Tiny numbers.
Tiny. Yet this office was created.
So beyond creating this office, what else stands out to you about the specific laws Florida has put in place that the report highlights? Any examples?
Yeah, the report highlights what it calls a systematic targeting of voter registration and civic engagement activities. For instance, there was a provision in Florida law, SB 7050. It would have imposed $50,000 fines on organizations for each non-citizen who collects or handles voter registration forms.
$50,000.
Yeah, per person.
Per person, yeah.
But this provision was permanently blocked by a federal court in May 2024. U.S. District Judge Mark Walker ruled it was unlawful discrimination, found it effectively banned individuals, legal residents perhaps, from helping eligible citizens register to vote just because those helpers were non-citizens, regardless of their own long-standing community ties.
And these aren't just isolated incidents, are they? The report mentions federal courts have repeatedly stepped in.
They certainly have. That's a key point in the report. Beyond SB 7050, a federal judge also struck down parts of the 2021 Florida law, SB 90, finding it runs roughshod over the right to vote. Pretty strong language from the court.
Yeah, it is.
These federal court interventions, they demonstrate that Florida's voting restrictions aren't just, partisan tactics, but, as the courts have found, they often violate fundamental constitutional rights. The ongoing need for such intervention, the report suggests, illustrates the systematic nature of these efforts to limit individual democratic participation.
Okay, let's try and bring these two threads together now. So what does this all mean when we connect the trademark battle against the FRA and these broader voter suppression efforts? What's the link?
Well, the report ties these two seemingly separate issues together really tightly. It argues that both the trademark dispute against the FRA and the broader voter suppression efforts serve a singular, fundamental purpose:
Which is
limiting political opposition and consolidating institutional control over the electoral process. The trademark enforcement against the FRA aims to control the internal dynamics of Republican politics by suppressing independent voices. That directly complements the external suppression achieved through restrictive voting laws and the election police. One targets inside, the other targets outside.
Okay, that connection makes sense. This raises an important question then. What are the constitutional implications for individual voters? How do these actions, taken together, affect, say, Republican voters, maybe disenfranchised Republican voters, and independent voters in Florida, maybe specifically for folks living in a place like St. Johns County?
That's a great question. For individual Republican voters, including those in St. Johns County, the report suggests this means a more centralized party, one that might be less responsive to diverse viewpoints within its own ranks. If independent groups like the FRA are stifled, it just reduces avenues for internal debate and dissent. That could potentially leave some Republican voters feeling, well, unrepresented or unheard by their own party leadership.
Hmm.
Now, for disenfranchised Republican voters, or maybe those who find themselves at odds with the current party direction, the chilling effect is significant. If an independent organization they identify with faces legal threats just for using the party's symbols or name, it can deter participation. It makes it harder for new dissenting voices or organizations to emerge and challenge the status quo.
And harder to participate too, right?
Exactly.
Mhm.
And if their methods of political participation, like maybe helping with voter registration drives, are restricted, it can make it harder for them and the people they help to even cast a ballot. And for independent voters, whether they're in St. Johns County or anywhere else in Florida, these actions reduce political pluralism overall. A less diverse internal party landscape plus broader voter restrictions means fewer choices, less competition, and a political system that might seem less open to new ideas or individual influence.
Right.
The report really emphasizes the potential chilling effect on political association and organizing across the board, making it harder for any individual or group to form or operate effectively if they don't align perfectly with the dominant party structure.
And this is where the story truly takes an unexpected turn, as the report highlights. This convergence is seen as a significant threat to democratic governance itself. It warns that if these tactics succeed, it could create something profoundly unsettling, what the report calls competitive authoritarianism. What exactly does that term mean for our democratic system?
It's a really sharp term, isn't it? Competitive authoritarianism. Imagine a democracy that, looks normal on the surface. You still have elections, different parties exist. But behind the scenes, the dominant party is using every legal trick in the book, every mechanism to systematically weaken or remove any real opposition.
So the competition isn't really fair.
Exactly. The shell of democracy is there, but the core substance, true competition, free participation, it's hollowed out. It's democracy in name, perhaps, but not really in spirit. The report warns that if the RPOF succeeds in its trademark enforcement against the FRA, it could set a powerful precedent. Other party organizations might try to use similar intellectual property claims to suppress independent political groups across the nation.
Wow.
So this isn't just about party control in Florida, it's potentially about the erosion of democratic norms nationally. The use of legal mechanisms, which can appear neutral on the surface, to suppress political opposition is key here. And the ongoing need for federal court interventions, as we've seen repeatedly in Florida's voting rights cases, serves as a stark illustration of how fragile democratic institutions can be when faced with these systematic efforts at political control.
So today we've taken a deep dive into how legal mechanisms, everything from trademark law to voting legislation, can be intertwined in ways that significantly impact political pluralism and democratic participation, specifically in Florida, based on this report. It's a complex picture, certainly, but one that offers some profound insights into the challenges facing democratic governance today.
Indeed. We've explored how a party's internal control mechanisms, like the trademark issue and external voter suppression efforts, can converge, and the constitutional implications of such strategies. The core question really remains: how resilient are our democratic institutions and constitutional protections when they're faced with systematic efforts to consolidate power like this?
Yeah, that is the question. So what stands out to you, the listener, about these interconnected issues? As you reflect on this deep dive, maybe consider this provocative thought. In a world where political organizations might increasingly use these sorts of legal tools to subtly but effectively shape the political landscape, how might you, as an individual voter, recognize and respond to such trends in your own political engagement? And how can you advocate for the democratic principles that matter most, regardless of which party you belong to or if you belong to none at all?